Okay, we're back. I'll start over.
Now you're on.
Good afternoon.
Again.
We're on? We working? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, the Design Review Board 2 public meeting of May 8th, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive our notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 7 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at her discretion. Can we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Carter? Absent. Mr. Gergos? Here. Mr. Malikian? Here. Mr. Zarifian? Here. And Ms. Friedman?
Here.
Great.
Can we please have the report regarding the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on May 2nd, 2008.
Thank you. Oral communications. I have no cards, but I have a brief oral communication, which is to announce that this Sunday after next, which is May 18th, there will be the first ever annual, hopefully, Glendale Garden Tour, with all proceeds to go to benefit cancer programs at Glendale Adventist Hospital. Tickets are available the morning of at 10 a.m. at Brand Library or through the website of the Glendale Historical Society. I hope to see you all there. The community has been great about coming out with donations to help these programs, but we really also like to make the garden tour a success, so we hope to see everybody there. Okay. Our first item is staff announcements. Do we have any staff announcements?
Yes, we have one staff announcement. The DRB case number 2, PDR 2007-154-A. The applicant is requesting a continuance. They are not able to make it tonight.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote on that?
I would.
Okay. Can we have...
motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue the 1734 Idlewood Road project.
Second.
And that would be continue until, I'm sorry.
22nd, I think.
Be the 22nd, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Gergos?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
And Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, now with the consent calendar items, do we open the item, call it into the record, or do we just vote on, do we just someone make a motion for the entire consent calendar?
Well, it depends on what you'd like. If you're fine with the staff report and the recommendation, you have no questions, and there are no speaker cards, you can just move to approve the project on consent.
Okay, no, I actually do have a speaker card from a neighbor as well as from the applicant, so I will go ahead and open it.
But we need to move it down to the...
Yeah, we need to move it out of consent then.
Correct.
Typically, also, you might ask...
Actually, the neighbor is in favor, so I think we actually don't need to open it. So in that case, does anybody on the board want this open for any reason?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Then you just move to approve the project.
And I'll make a motion to approve the project with staff's comments or recommendations.
Okay, I had a motion by Mr. Malakian and a second by Mr. Zarifian. This would be roll call. Mr. Malakian?
Yes.
Mr. Gergos?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Madam Chair Friedman?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, and our first case is case 2-3458-R at 1445 Imperial Drive.
Yes, Chairperson Friedman, board members, as you can tell from the case number, this is rather an old case. Again, the address is 1445 Imperial Drive. The applicant is Franco Narabian, and the owner is Mark Lynette. This Design Review Board case number 345-A, was last approved by the Design Review Board on February the 12th, 2004. The project was under construction. It was completed. The plans were designed originally by No.2 Associates. Modifications were made during construction, and the totality and scope of all of the changes to the project essentially required the Design Review Board re-review and approval in order to go ahead and maintain these existing modifications. The original Design Review Board approval was to add approximately 696 square feet of floor area to an existing two-story, 2,405 square foot Spanish-style house, add a two-car garage, and convert the existing two-car detached garage to a guest house, and again, to fully remodel the exterior. The previous two-story single-family residence was constructed in 1937 and exhibited characteristics of the Spanish architectural style. The approved two-story addition and residential remodeling featured red tile gabled roofs, custom-designed iron railing and tile details, and arched windows. The elements were found to be compatible with not only the existing style of the home, but along with the surrounding periods. This home is just located on, again, Imperial Drive, right off of Royal, which is the historic district that is under review right now.
Is this actually within the bounds of the
It is not. It is just outside of the Royal Boulevard proposed historic district. Again, the property actually changed hands in the middle of this, and so when the staff went out to do the final Design Review Board inspection, that's when the modifications were noted. Staff met with the then property owner. We reviewed all of the changes that had been made, discussed the possibility of either returning the home back to what was approved by the Design Review Board, or else allowing the applicant to proceed to go before the Design Review Board to maintain the proposed modifications. The property actually ended up changing hands, and the new property owner wanted to maintain the existing modifications. If you'd like, I can go through the various changes that were made in greater detail as highlighted in the staff report. The plans on the left-hand side are the plans that were approved by the Design Review Board. The plans on the right-hand side are reflective of what is currently existing on the project site. First off, the overall massing. You can tell, and this is only a very subtle change, but as noted here on the interior side, left side elevation, the roof ridge extends above so that there are actually changes in the ridge lines throughout the home. As constructed, the ridge lines are just uniform throughout the structure. And so our senior urban designer felt that change, even alone in the ridge line, sort of created a difference in the massing and in the gable ends of the home. Second off, the garage door. The previous one had an approved style, sort of opened out to the outside. It wasn't a roll-up, it wasn't a tilt-up, but it actually was a Spanish-style door, high-quality cedar hinge door, and the opening was squared off. The previous property owner during construction actually rounded off the corners, and now it's just a wood roll-up door, which again has lost the Spanish charm and flavor of the original. Driveway material. The previous one had a Belgard stone paver. The existing, and it's best seen in the photographs here, is rather a minor change, and they've changed it actually to Spanish, or I should say to red tile. The fourth item dealt with the windows, and there were multiple changes in the windows. The original windows were somewhat recessed wood-trimmed windows or simple stucco openings with wood sills painted dark brown, and this would be the dark brown that you see here and highlighted on the elevation. The wood sills and the recess has completely been eliminated, and what you find now are the rather highly stylized foam moldings that have been included around all of the windows, not only the square or rectangular ones up on the second floor, but the stylized arched features that you see both on the front elevation window, and this would be the street side elevation right up above the garage. Furthermore, the arched windows were previously decorated with Spanish style detail that would be compatible with the proposed or previously approved Spanish style home. And again, now you see here is the stylized foam moldings. Location of certain windows has changed. Most notable on the street side elevation of the garage, you'll see that you had a little small picture window. This was a massing that was completely plain faced. You see now the little picture window has been eliminated. You have a proposed, or in this case an existing, because they're trying to maintain the existing changes, window added. You also have changes to the massing of the windows. There was previously, as noted here in the photographs, somewhat of an enclosed second floor balcony. That balcony was going to somewhat be maintained with the wood windows in the previous approved set of plans. Those have been completely changed out, and the scale and the proportions of the windows have changed. So these are little changes, but when you add them in, the totality and the scope of it really sort of changes the focus and flavor of the home. Last but not least, there's a bay window that has been added, and this is to somewhat of the interior side elevation, but again, the bay window is not consistent with the Spanish style home. The fifth, somewhat matter or item would be the chimneys. The previous proposal had two chimneys, as you see here. This would be, again, the front elevation. One of those chimneys has been completely eliminated, and so only one remains. This would be the location of the other chimney right here. Also, the decorative detail of the previous Spanish-style chimney with the tile surrounds and the iron grid work has obviously been completely eliminated, and you just see somewhat of a flat, simplistic chimney currently on project. Next item, the eaves and corbels. Again, the previous proposal had wood corbels that were very visible because of the darker color. Those wood corbels have now been painted somewhat the color of the foam molding, and so it really blends into the entire facade. And not only that, this elevation sort of does not reflect the fact that there are now gutters that have been added to the home throughout, so that you can't really even see the previous wood corbels. They've actually been hidden. So not only the colors changed, but the fact that they're now being hidden. The front landing and entryway, the previous one, again, this was a Spanish-style home. They had included decorative Spanish-style tile all along the edge and an iron railing work. The current home features slate tile, somewhat of replaced with sandstone. It's the standard sandstone 12 by 12, so you've lost that Spanish-style detail. Patio openings, that's noted, and again, these are interior changes, so these aren't really highly visible from the street, but again, you make note of it that the openings have changed and have become arched, whereas before the previous one was very simple arches and whatnot. Now you have added what's called a pent roof, as I've been told by our historic preservation officer that this is a pent roof with gables. That is a kind of a slight detail that adds character to the home, but again, it's not exactly consistent with a true Spanish-style original architectural piece. Last but not least, landscaping. The previous project, as you see here before you in the photographs, had significant landscaping, lots of mature trees along the hillside bluff. Most of these mature trees have been removed, although in the previous landscape plan they were noted as going to be maintained. So those trees are gone. And right now, you have a remaining grassy knoll, and it's best evident here. It's beautifully, when you walk through the project, you can see that it's beautifully landscaped. It's just the fact that in the previous project proposal, you had these mature trees that were going to be maintained and preserved, whereas now they've come back. It's wonderfully, detailed and immaculately landscaped, but again, it's not consistent with what the board had seen and approved previously. Again, staff met. One of our biggest concerns were windows and whatnot, but in our discussion, essentially, the project remains as it is. The current owner would like to maintain all of these changes as they are. Based on staff's evaluation, the diminished quality of the design, detailing and construction, essentially staff recommends denial of the project in its current form because it really has veered away from the previous Spanish-style home to one, with foam moldings and a more Mediterranean flavor. If staff feels, if not staff, but if the design review board feels that these numerous changes are somewhat in keeping or in the totality of it are somewhat acceptable, staff still recommends that the design review board consider, and there were actually 8 conditions that were recommended as part of your staff report. This would be to at least remove the foam moldings around the windows, to replace it with wood and wood sills, and to add tiles around the arched windows as previously proposed, to remove the bay window, to reconsider the pattern, size, and proportion of the openings. Again, to go back to the garage door that was previously approved, replace the chimney details, replace the wrought iron railings and details as shown on the originally approved plans, and replant trees, at least in the front yard. Again, that concludes staff's brief presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Could we pass I know those are the old house, but I'm just curious. Can I see those?
Of course. Oh, and we forgot to mention, in all the various details, obviously you can tell that the color scheme has greatly changed as well, so
Did they
that's a given.
Did they specify that the rafter tails were going to be oversized, or was it always just the 2x-rafter?
It was just going to be the 2x-rafters. Actually, these are the existing, so that the rear house was going to the addition to the rear house, the rear 2-story addition was just going to mimic what is currently existing, but the color treatment of those rafter tails and the exposure of them, is going to add that little bit of a contrast in the Spanish-style home, whereas now the existing rafter tails are pretty much painted the same color as the facade and hidden by the added gutters.
Well, they have gutters on the existing, though. Right?
They did, but they were going to actually remove, from what I know, they were going to remove them and have the painted details of the gutters to make it pop.
Did you see these? Have you seen these?
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, I have cards from both the owner and the architect. Whoever would like to come first. Franco, welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Franco Noravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I don't want to take credit where credit's not due. I marked it as applicant and not the architect.
Sorry, my apologies. You're absolutely right.
The reason I say that, I'll go through give you a little bit of the story of how all of this happened. Originally, the house was designed, as you see, or presented as this Spanish hacienda type of a house. And shortly after the construction began, the previous owners took a trip to Florida, and they saw these magnificent homes with their details, and it reminded them of some of the homes they had seen on Royal Boulevard. And actually, they wanted to incorporate some of these ideas into their new home. This is the story that I've been told by the previous owners, which is my client. So they came back and they brought actually pictures back, showed it to their contractor, and said, "This is what we would like to do." And the contractor said he'll check with the city and implement the changes. Subsequent to that, they started having problems with the contractor and eventually ended up in a lawsuit, and the contractor didn't end up finishing the work, but the owner was always under the impression that that had been taken care of, and the city was aware of the changes that they wanted to make. I have pictures of actually what they wanted to do, and then it was interesting. The owner pointed out to me, because when she showed me the pictures, I said, "Yeah, this is in Florida. We don't have this in Glendale." And there's a house on Royal Boulevard, almost directly across from that intersection. I think it's 1428 Royal. They have an arch entry, and the stylized molding detail that we're talking about, they have that exact same detail. It's painted the maroon color and blends in with the door, so it's not very noticeable. But when she told me and I looked at it, I said, "Yeah, it's exactly that same thing, with broken molding around the door." So anyways, I was brought into the picture when they were trying to sell the house, and they discovered that they never had final DRB approval. And the staff, when I first met with staff, it seemed like the biggest issue was basically the moldings, because that's changed the style of the house. I was kind of surprised to see some of these comments about all the changes, and I'd like to address them. I think a lot of it is the confusion with what was presented to you last time. I'll go through the comments. As far as massing is concerned, that's the gable change that staff is talking about. It's a mistake on the first set of drawings that were presented to you. The addition to this house, if you look on, and we have, it's a good thing, and part of the package, we have the old drawings that were submitted. You have it over there too. The addition was basically the garage, the part above the garage, and directly behind the garage. That's the addition to the main house. The gable that you see over there, the one with the little arched window in the attic with a railing, that gable is an existing gable that's always been there. It's part of the original house, and that pitch is not correct. If you look on the pictures, you'll see that that pitch is not correct. When you adjust the pitch and put the correct pitch, you end up with what you have here. So that wasn't a change that was made. That was something that originally was not right. That was meant to be the existing gable, and it is today the existing gable. When you do that, there's no really issue with the massing. The window that you see up there could not have been placed there, because you don't have that height. There is no that difference in. Never has been, because that's been an existing gable. The garage doors, even though the first set of drawings show like this carrot style door, I don't think the intent, there are carrot style doors that are roll up. I don't think the intent was to have a swinging door, so that's my comment about that. The driveway material, I actually think the brick, in my opinion, is more compatible than that stone that was proposed. There is brick on the house, and I brought some pictures, some additional pictures of the house, all around the house, when we found out that there's additional concerns. My client took some more pictures. So there's brick on the house. There's brick on a couple of houses down. Some of these older homes have brick. So in my opinion, brick is more appropriate material for that driveway than the stone. But that's the comment about the driveway. Windows, the biggest thing with the windows. The old drawings that you see, I don't see anywhere in there that says recessed windows. And in all four, I know that I've been doing work for a long time. In all four, recessed windows were almost never even mentioned in design review board hearings. Wood windows are great. There were wood windows, but it doesn't say they're recessed. I have the construction drawings. There's no detail about recessed windows. There's no note about recessed windows. So it's just an assumption we make when we look at a drawing like that yes, they were going to be recessed. That was never the case. The windows were always going to be wood windows. In older homes, maybe that's what we assume this. Older homes, the windows open in, and your screen is on the outside. And all the new windows, they open out. So to recess a window, you have to have a 2x6 wall. And all those walls, most of those walls are existing walls. So I don't think it was never the intent to recess the windows. As far as the molding, so you see, if the windows are not recessed, by putting the molding, you're actually adding detail. If you don't have the molding, you'll have this flush look. So again, I think having the molding adds more detail than if you were to remove all the moldings. Window locations. Again, when I first started this project, and I have to apologize, there are some, all the window changes that staff is talking about, the windows are actually there. I just didn't show it. And I apologize, but I thought that the big issue was just molding. We were just talking about molding and basically from the sides that can be seen from the street. So I concentrated on that, and I thought that was going to be my presentation. So I didn't pay very close attention to all the windows. But the fact is that all the windows that were in the old plan, they exist in the new plan, with one exception. There's one window that's been omitted, and that's the window on the elevation side D, I guess, the bottom elevation, between the two arches. If you look on the old plans, you'll see a square window between the porch and that arched window, and that window is not there. But other than that one window, all the rest of the windows are there. And as far as their location, the pattern, again, it may not be 100% accurate on my drawing, but most of those windows are existing windows. They were there before the last time and if you look at the old pictures, you can see that one window that's different, that's always been there. It's not something that, and if you look at the old drawings that were presented to you, that window is there. It's a little bigger. We're talking about the sun porch, the one that was enclosed. So that's nothing new that we did. It's always been there. Bay window. Bay window was original to the house, and if you look on the floor plans, you'll see, even on the floor plans that were presented to you last time, the bay window has always been there. It's nothing new. And there's a perfect example of how, bay window, maybe it doesn't go with the Spanish architecture, but things don't always have to be perfectly per that style. The original house didn't have it. So it's not something we added. And it was being proposed to be maintained last time. The only reason you didn't notice it is, once again, the drawings, it shows the bay window, it doesn't show a roof over it. So what was depicting an existing condition, it's the wrong drawing. That's why you don't see it. So there, chimneys. The chimney that's been eliminated, they decided not to do that fireplace. Again, my opinion, I think taking that chimney away, I think as far as massing is concerned, it helps it, doesn't hurt it. The eaves, I think Mr. Garagos noticed that the corbels that we're talking about, even though on those elevations were shown, and they appear to be these 4x massive corbels, they're just your 2x6 rafter tails, or 2x4 rafter tails that the existing house had. And nothing is different about that except color. Color had to change, I think, once the owner started making the changes and going away from that hacienda style. Then I think the color is not appropriate for it to stay that color anymore.
You can wrap it up. I've given you some extra time. So.
Landscaping and patios, again, the patios that are changed are not visible from anywhere. Landscaping, it changed as a result of the wall. The wall and the stairs, if you notice on the original plan, is different than the new plan. But there was a permit pulled for changing that retaining wall, and I imagine that at some point they must have received some kind of a DRB approval. But that wall was done with permits, and as a result of moving that wall, that shape is not there for that tree to be there. It didn't go around the tree anymore, and that's how the tree was removed. We have a petition from just a few property owners. We didn't realize this was going to be such a big opposition from staff. Otherwise, I think we could have probably gotten more signatures. But there's a petition from some property owners that are supporting the project. I have pictures, if you want to see the...
Okay, I think your time is
Okay.
up
If
for
you have
a
any
while.
questions, I'll come back to them.
Okay, thank you, Franco. Mark Lynette, please. 3 minutes.
Dr. Franco? My name is Mark Lynette. I live at 1455 Imperial Drive, Glendale 91207. My family and I have lived for the past 19 years in the same neighborhood, in fact, less than 3 blocks away at 1600 Las Flores, just outside the 500 feet. We actually admired this house when it was being renovated, and when it came up for sale earlier this year, we decided to make an offer to buy it. And we were informed about the problems with the design review, and that's why Franco was hired to represent the plan to the board. We didn't, because of delay in receiving mail at the new address, we didn't learn of staff's objections other than the windows until yesterday, literally, and that's why, as Franco said, we didn't do more with the petition. However, we did obtain signatures from a neighbor, Dan Cabrera, who lives directly across the street, and the Holmes family that lives but 3 doors away. Mr. Naravian has already addressed most of the specific issues. I do feel that, had staff gone to the property, they would have found many of these discrepancies in the windows that are missing on the plans, but are in fact still installed on the house as they always were. And I would hope that the board and the board would agree that the finished house, as done by the previous owners, is still a welcome addition to the neighborhood, and I would ask that it be approved as is.
Thank you.
Very much.
Do you have something?
Yes, just
No. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. The multiple changes were discussed in great deal with Lisa Huber, the previous property owner, and there were numerous discussions that we had. And had it been just the windows or the window trim, we would not be here today. Had it been just that modification. It's the totality and the scope of all the modifications that require review by the Design Review Board once more. And Lisa Huber was very well informed, and so she decided to proceed. And I know, Franco, we had just discussed it, but you're right. The staff report really focuses on all the minutia of the changes. It wasn't just, the fact that our previous discussions had mentioned the garage doors, the color, the eaves, the window trims, the openings, the gutters off, and the tile. So.
Let me ask you, after hearing the presentation from Franco and from the owner, is there any, there seems to be a few discrepancies about facts, not so much opinions, but about facts. Is there anything that you think that they're correct about that we should disregard, or?
The window location, we have not verified that. I myself did the Design Review Board framing inspection and went out for the site for the final inspection. I did not go, after taking the photographs and taking doing the walkthrough with the Design Review Board set of plans, I noticed that the windows had been somewhat changed. I have not been out to the site yet to verify that those two, the windows in questions that had been eliminated that are now, that are not on the plans but actually are on the plans. No, I have not field verified these windows themselves. The comments regarding the window changes and whatnot, it's still, regarding the trim, it definitely still stands. The entire look of the home in regards to the foam molding surrounds has been changed from the previous authentic style, Spanish style home and wood surround windows and coloring to what's now tacked on foam molding and especially highly stylized. I'm not sure the arched window that Franco mentioned that's on Royal Boulevard, if it's a true 1920s Spanish style home, it probably had a stone surround and not a foam molding stylized surround. So again, I don't know the home that Franco's referring to, and I'd love to take a photograph of it. So yes, staff would concede to the fact that, if there have been windows certain eliminated or whatnot, then, my apologies for not verifying that each window that was presented on a set of plans that I normally, would take and verify in the field. But so I apologize for that. But yes, Stephanie, I believe, has an.
And if I may, we have the primary record sheet, I think, of the house, the surveyed house that was referred to in Franco's discussion, and there's no well, we haven't visited this particular house for this particular reason. There's no indication on our record sheet that there's a foam molding surround. There is a stucco surround on the entry, and we can pass this to you. But it's not clear that it's foam underneath the stucco. In regards to Mr. Naravian's comment about the original pitch of the roof, we do our best to rigorously review the sort of before and after drawings, and would, if he is saying that pitch was existing and that now is drawn correctly when before it wasn't, we will have to take his word for it. We simply compare the original proposal to the new drawings and try to do our best, as Vilya has actually in excruciating detail, to provide you all of the information you need to make your best decision.
Okay, great. So if you can pass that report. I will then close the public hearing, having no other cards, and open it up to discussion among the board. Which brave soul would like to go first?
No, I can go ahead and start on this. I actually remember the original project that it came in front of us, and I had many comments, I think, when it came in, and what it was presented to us then, and what we had reviewed, our consensus was that it was for approval, and we approved it. I think design review in general, we're sitting here as a body, and the staff both have somewhat of a common goal. What our goal is to make sure that the design is done well and the quality of the materials are used are well, and the design is consistent throughout, and also the end result is compatible and somewhat coherent with its neighborhood and neighboring buildings. I'll be honest with you, I'm somewhat surprised, not on the reason that it's here, because of the amount of items that has been changed. I understand that. But I'm surprised on the specific comments, and as staff, and I'm sure Stephanie has both have reviewed this, and the recommendations that are being given to us to specifically take certain elements out of the overall picture and introduce what we had originally approved. I think at the end, if you step back and read the items, what you're going to have is a combination of a Mediterranean and also the Spanish look. I think the end result, I think when I looked at the package and I'm looking at it, and if I would just step away and say, okay, this is the first time I'm looking at this, I think it's consistent throughout. I think it's consistent with its own details and with its own materials that has been used. I think if this was presented originally, we would have certain comments, but in general, it would have been consistent. For me to come back and say, let's go ahead and remove the foam moldings and take it back to recessed windows, and nowhere in there that we were told, or that, and then I agree, that I don't think back then we would talk about the recessed windows. It's something it's new and something that it's been current. And I don't really recall, and I have to say, I don't recall if we even talk about the recessed windows or anything like that. So by eliminating certain elements there to kind of bring it back to what we originally approved, what we approved, not what staff or anybody else had originally came up with, is to me, it's wrong. I think we have to look at the quality of the design, the quality, the craftsmanship of the building. You have to see what the end result has been, and I drove by, it's nothing that it stands out. I think, to me personally, the one that prior to this, that we got we went back and we just said, we completely agreed with the staff. That is something that it should have come in front of us, but it was something that the staff could have just approved over the counter. Let's just put it that way. That's how I would see it. The design hasn't drastically changed, and it was something that it made it better. It made the design better. And to me, I'm not sure the design is better, but I'm comfortable and comfortable to say that this design is consistent. The details that are used is consistent, and the quality of the work that has been crafted and put in. I actually drove by around that area, and I don't see these issues that for me to come back and say, okay, let's remove the molding and let's take it back to what it was originally. Because if I do that, then I have to say, let's go ahead and tear this well-designed building and well-crafted, meaning constructed and it's done, implemented, tear the whole thing down and then rebuild what we originally approved. And I don't think that the end result is that bad for me to take this project to that level and extend and take it back to its original state and original level that we approved. I don't really think that Spanish style is the answer, but that was what it was presented to us. That was the style that the original architect and the original owner came to us and told us that this is what we wanted to do. And we just took that and we commented on that. We never kind of went back and said, this is the style that we like or we don't like, and let's take it to another, let's look at something else. But what they've done is they've taken the existing structure, existing openings, and they felt that this is the look that they want to achieve. And what they managed to do is to make a consistent design and not mishmash of different elements. They didn't pick certain elements from there. They said, we like that, let's keep that, and then come up with something else. So I personally think that what it's been presented to us right now, it's fine, and I don't think it justifies us to go ahead and start tearing this building down to be able to get what originally was approved. As far as the trees, I'm not sure. I don't know what was originally there. I'm not even sure, if those trees were ever gonna, if they were gonna end up keeping them. They're saying that they were gonna keep it. I didn't really, see what was there and what wasn't there, so I can't tell, what to comment on the landscaping. But as far as these garage doors, chimneys, remove windows, the details, add tile details. If I come back and say, okay, let's remove these and add tile detail, but that's not the end of it. We have to go throughout the entire house and say, okay, the tile detail works with the more darker color, the tile roof. The rafters should be painted. They should comment on that. The exposed rafters should be more painted and brought back to that. The paint, the color of the walls need to be repainted to kind of accentuate the tiles and so on and so forth. And I can't just pick and choose one element out of here and say, let's go ahead and do this. If any of these we feel that it's true, then we have to say, okay, then the original design was the one that we had to go with. We can't just pick certain elements out of there. That's my opinion. So I completely agree with all these items that have been changed. It's a change from its original approved design. But I think our goal is here to make sure that the end result of the building is designed well And if any changes do occur, we need to look at it, obviously, if it's drastic. And I definitely agree that this is something that we should, as a body, we should agree on that it's done well. But I think to take it back to its original state from what it's been converted to, I think it's a little bit too much.
Thank you.
I also think the building as it is, I think, is positive. I did have one aspect, and it's fairly major, but it is fundamental, I think. I'm making a distinction between a couple of the surrounds. I think the two very decorative surrounds, sort of the ziggurat around the arched openings, I do think that would fit into the style that's actually shown in the one on Royal. Those two elements, in Spanish, they would make a big deal about sort of decorative windows. So those two I really don't have a problem with. The other elements that were explained, I think, were nicely done in revision. I don't, sort of have problems with that. I think the chimney issue is probably true. I think that could probably be addressed without too much trouble. But two items I think that are really unfortunate is that, they went with a very inexpensive gutter instead of sort of a half round, which would have been really great, or might have been recommended at the time, or could have been recommended. And then the foam surrounds of the windows, I think that's a really tough issue. I don't know how you address that, whether you make somebody really change that, but, I don't know that I would have gone with that, originally. And I don't know, I think there might just be a distinction between whether you consider it recessed or not. I wouldn't have really used that term. I think in this one on Royal, they are recessed, but houses of this style and the existing house, it's just a bullnose plastered to the jamb. So it's not really a recess. They just didn't extend the jamb out to the plaster. You kept it back to the stud, so you'd bullnose the plaster. So it's not really a recess, which is what would have been done, and is really unfortunate that they didn't do that. So it is the detail for me that's really unfortunate about it, because I think all of it else was done well. I think going with the lighter materials, bringing that sort of lightness to it, I think is all fantastic. I think it has a great look. So that doesn't really bother me. I think the foam surrounds that are on the majority of the windows, not the ones with the arch, those decorative ones I think are great. But the window ones I do think are kind of a problem.
What would be your solution if you remove them?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, how much...
I don't think tile would be the solution.
No, I don't. I would just say take the foam off and bullnose the openings, if that is how the window works, which is what the original house was, and do the sill. It sort of takes what I think is nice about it, especially in the older houses, is it lets the window be there for the interest on the wall, and then lets the front window really stand out, as opposed to trying to make all those little windows stand out as important. So, being new on the board, I'm not sure how much you push for a big change like that.
The only thing that I would just say is that, that's a decision, but, I mean, let's look at the actual detail itself, and most probably, and I'm not sure how the window detail is, how it's attached to the framing. The only way that you will achieve that the bullnose in is if it's actually not a nail-on and it's a full frame.
It's very possible these are nail-on, which would be very difficult to do.
It would be very difficult. We may end up having something a lot horrible than
it's difficult.
You may end up putting a frame around it again, and then, so I don't know if that's
The owner, I could be wrong, nod or shake your head, that these are the original, a lot of these are the original windows? So these are the original windows under that foam.
I see.
If that makes any difference.
Oh.
That means the jamb is back enough to bullnose. It's a big change, and trust me, I'm very sensitive to that. So,
Frank, I'm going to call you back in 1 minute, okay? Let's finish with the board comments, and I will, because we have a very light agenda, I'll give you a chance to come back. And by the way, your difficulty has nothing to do with your time on this board, because we very rarely have gotten this situation where something's come in where it's been built, and we're asked to evaluate it. And it's a really different kind of thing. It's much harder for us, if looking at something conceptually or trying to actually make someone go and change something that's been done. So it's not your inexperience that's the problem. Were you finished with your comments?
Yeah, I think it was basically those issues. I think the foam that were on the main surrounds, I think is great. I don't have any problem.
I
It's
just
one
have
of
to
those
add
ones.
one other thing. I just want to clear myself. and-
You again?
No, just one thing. I have no problem of making people tear things off. I have no problem with it if I think that it's not consistent and it's not done well. So I just have to put it on the record, so it's not, but I think I've done it, well, I don't think I've done it. I don't think we've had this before, so this is the first time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The thing that keeps coming to my mind is that, and it's a personal thing, to see all this material wasted, taken out, and changed, it kind of bothers me a little bit. But that's a personal thing. I feel like it's when I went to the site and saw the building, I said, this looks good, actually. I mean, I know that when we pass by neighborhoods, we don't look at houses, go Spanish Mediterranean, Mediterranean Spanish, you know. Sometimes you get a mix, and it's the overall outcome, the big picture, that gives you an impression. And the impression that this house made to me was a good one. Although it wasn't as sunny, it was later in the day. But I think I agree that it's basically a house overall well done. So I would be very hesitant to see a lot of this work be torn out. And if it would have made an enormous difference, I would have said yes. If they had changed all the windows to arched windows, for example, I would have said no way. But it's the end result is convincing. So it's to the point that I would hesitate to take all of this material out and change it to something which is probably to a naked eye, meaning for a passerby, won't be detectable. So it's a little bit hard for me to think that I can ask for something of this kind of scale to be torn down and be rebuilt, mainly because the house looked pretty good. And I think I agree with a lot of the comments. I think some of the things like the chimney details, those kind of things that can be improved, I think it's okay to make more improvements on a house, but not tear it down and make minor changes, which please don't take it kind of, when I say minor, I understand. You might say the real thing that is lost here is the house, but it hasn't been lost, because when you look at the older drawings and you look at the new house has something good about it that makes a good impression on you, and I think it's not a bad house. It's a good one, and there's been a consistency in construction, and the garage door, for example, the hinge door would be practically not usable. I don't know who nowadays, but the last time I saw a hinged garage door was almost never. I've never seen that.
I don't want to interrupt, but actually they've drawn horizontal lines in there, and I think the intent was a sectional door.
But I think
The
that's
sectional
even
door.
worse.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but I don't think it was actually a swinging door. I think it was a
Yeah,
sectional.
so it's, whether it's
Unless
this
they
kind of
said
a door, or to make a hinge door, a roll-up door look like a hinge door is even worse, I think. So I would just go to minimal tear down, in my opinion, but if there's a detail that can be improved, that's fine. Whether it's the chimney detail is about the only thing that at least at this point I can see, but I have to go through the notes to find other things. But I think the driveway, the brick driveway is consistent. It's a different way of doing it, but if it was, let's say, a shiny tile, it would have been non Spanish, basically, on a floor. But But this is a different way of Spanish language that has been used. So I'm basically for less tear down, some improvement, kind of both.
Thank you. Franco, I'll give you 1 minute if you want it, since you were waving and...
I'll be real quick. Just I wanted to make a clarification about existing windows and new windows. There were some new wood windows. So while they exist, yet true majority of the windows that we talked about were existing windows, with the addition, they used new windows. And the new windows, they're almost, I cannot be 100%, but 99% of the new windows are nail-ons. So then if we take the moldings away, we have how do we hide the difference between the two windows? So I think that's just one comment.
Okay.
And if I can just say one more thing, that usually we're here for the neighbors. Usually when there's neighbors opposing a project, I've had cases approved by the board and the neighbors appeal it. In this case, we have petitions from the neighbors and nobody is opposing the project. So obviously we've done something right, or they've done something right if nobody's opposing it and people are supporting it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess I'm last to speak. First, I want to thank the staff for bringing this back to us. In the past, that hasn't happened as much, and I think it needs to happen. It's frustrating, as you know, for a board to spend a lot of time approving something just to have the homeowners change it and staff to just change it, and for us not to be consulted. So thank you all for bringing it back. That said, I agree with all the comments that have been made, from the staff all the way to the board. I think everybody has a very valid point. I agree with Mr. Garagos that the really big glaring, question for me is those foam moldings. I've been pretty consistent throughout in opposition to things like foam moldings, certain types of sidings that are added, things that look inorganic and fake, and I feel like in this particular case, you're really at the edge where it's hurting the house when you're close to it. But I also agree that from the street, you don't really see it as much, and it's certainly not one of the more egregious examples of this. I think on a smaller house it would have been, but a house this size can sort of absorb that more, although it certainly has morphed, and that's the reason the staff has brought it back from what was trying to be a sort of pastiche of a traditional Spanish to something that's more of what we call Mediterranean, whatever that means. Having just been to the Mediterranean, I didn't see anything like this, but I understand the term as it's used. So that's really the question, and I agree with, I'm worried as Mr. Malekian is, what happens then when you take those off? What do you do next? You then put wood on, and then you really have to paint your corbels and make your garage door darker, and you open this huge can of worms. And I'm not so concerned in this case with what happened in the past. We're not going to sit here and be detectives and who's in the wrong and who's in the right. It's really more what's the best thing for the house and for the streetscape, and I'm very worried here that if we start fiddling around with what's really not a bad result, that it's going to get ugly fast. So, that's my feeling. And, when I was there, I kept thinking, when I first drove up to this, I was surprised it was the house, actually, because I was expecting what normally happens, which is they replace the wood with vinyl, and all of a sudden you've got, Versailles in the yard, and it's a whole different thing. And this is not that. So, there were things certainly I wish they hadn't have done. I'll say one thing, if that front entrance was actually on the front streetscape, I would have an issue with the limestone entrance, because to me that looks very out of place. That's a very contemporary treatment. And that's something I would have asked for the tile, and it's something you may consider in the future or not. But given that it's on the side of the house and is not visible from anything except maybe a helicopter, I'm not comfortable with asking you to replace that. So I completely understand why staff brought this forward. I understand why you made the recommendations you did, but I'm more worried about changing details without going all the way back than I am about approving it as it is. So that's my feeling, and I really, like you said, I think there is something about it that's working. So I'm comfortable with approving this as it is, without any conditions.
You felt exactly like I felt when I went to the site. I looked at it and I said, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
I was expecting much worse, but I felt that it left me a good impression, and came back and went through the pictures again, and I agree with most of the comments.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the project as it's presented,
As submitted?
as submitted.
Okay, I have a motion made by Board Member Malikian. Do I have a second?
Second?
A second by Board Member Zarifian. In terms of a roll call. Board Member Garagos?
Yes.
Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Chairperson Friedman?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 4-0. Thank you.
Can we move on to our next project, or does anybody need a break? All right, moving ahead to case number 2-PDR-2008-008-A at 3761 Santa Carlotta Street. I do not have a card from the applicant. Okay, now I do.
Roger, could you trying to open these?
Not going to work.
Too small.
We can pin it up.
Shall I start?
Seems like it's built, why is it here?
Good afternoon, Chairperson, members of the board. The next project before you with the case number PDR 2008-008A, located at 3761 Santa Carlotta Street, is essentially the first floor addition connecting the house and the garage, which will replace the existing detached garage, along with a new second story, the majority of which is above the first floor addition. Most of the house will remain one story. This is in R1 floor area ratio District 2, and the lot size is 7,488 square feet. The site is a triangular corner site. The proposed garage fronting Boston Avenue has the same orientation as the existing. This is the proposed, that's the existing. The proposed second story is located towards the back of the lot and is stepped back 28 feet 10 from Santa Carlotta and 17.5 feet from Boston Avenue frontage relative to the first floor. The garage on the Boston Avenue is moved closer to the property line on the street side by 1 foot 7 inches relative to the existing garage, still remaining in compliance with the code. And that is this setback I'm referring to. The majority of the homes in the neighborhood are one story. The new second story steps back on 3 sides relative to the first floor and is located towards the back of the site, away from both adjacent streets. Therefore, the upper story does not overpower adjacent homes, and its impact on the street is minimized. As you can see, this is the second story, which steps back from both streets. I'm sorry.
Do we have any elevation that shows that house that's behind it in terms of roof lines?
No, there are some photos. The fact is that this corner where the house is actually at the lowest point in relation to both Boston and Santa Carlotta. They both slope down to where this house is located. And I'm sorry, I can give you some. Here, And by the way, here. And there were also some letters from the neighbors. So the architectural style of the existing one-story single-family dwelling is modified ranch with low-pitched roof and a detached garage facing the street. No change to the style is proposed. The neighboring properties are mostly single-story ranch homes. The proposed second story will match the existing house on configuration, color, materials, and design. Therefore, it appears as an integrated part of the existing building. The existing and proposed windows are vinyl. Window details consist of wood sill, vertical frame, and wood paneling surrounding the vinyl windows. Typically, vinyl windows are not appropriate for this style of neighborhood. However, the proposed detailing creates interest and enhances the house and all spaces. The proposed second story is a step back from Santa Carlota, approximately 48 feet and more than 27 feet from Boston Avenue. The building orientation remained as existing. The building is nicely configured and well-designed detail. Staff recommend approval of the project, and this concludes.
Just clarify, I thought that one of our submission requirements with second floor additions was to show the neighboring, the roof line of the neighboring property? No?
This one is very difficult to see. There are so many trees and shrubs and slope. I went there and I tried to take photos, and it's difficult to see.
All right. Any questions for staff? Okay. In that case, Vicki Barberi, please.
Good afternoon, I'm Vicky Barbier, represent the Heritage Group, who are the architects for this project, 210 North Central Avenue, Suite 200. I think the only points that I would like to emphasize, and I just like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was notified about this letter of concern of the neighbor because of the second stories and the view. I prepared a little information that I would like to share with you. Is a view of all the houses around it.
You'll have to talk only at the mic. You can give us those, but they can't pick you up when you're here. Thanks.
Great. As you can see in the little 2 pages that I just gave it to you is an aerial view of the location of the existing house in reference to the houses all around. We showed the small second-story addition in this area, and we showed the distance in between the second story. It's not easy to see because in the aerial it's showing the amount of trees that we have in between the properties. Then I know that in between the back property and the addition is almost 52 feet. To one of the corner ones is 52 and a half, and the other one is 64. In the second page, you can see a section through the house that would be directly to the rear, and that would be the closest second-story addition, and that can give you we have a difference of 12 feet in between the pad of the existing property with the pad of the back property. We have the survey done, and we are at 12 feet different in between pads. On top of all this, I brought a photograph that we just took, not too beautiful, but we just took from the surrounding properties.
I'll pass it around.
It's one set. We
I see.
have time
Okay.
to make different sets. And I would like to provide you with a photographic survey of the streets in both sides, where you can look at the character of the houses. It's true that the houses who surround this property, the majority are one-story, and we have the cases where, because of the situation of the land, some houses are one-story but are way above the street. Then there is a difference between elevations and roofs. Houses who are closest to the street level, houses who are way above the street level. There is not a flat area where all the houses who are one-story, all the roofs are the same level. This provoked that, if you can see in the streetscape, that the roof lines really varies in between along the street.
Okay. Thank you very much. Your time is up, but, yeah.
No, I was just going to say that in reference to the other particular of the house, I think staff has done a wonderful job to describe it.
Okay, well,
Any question?
no, after the neighbors speak, we'll give you a chance to respond.
Thank you so
Okay?
much.
Thank you. Robert Foster.
Good evening. My name is Robert Foster. I live at 3752 Paraiso Way. My wife Helen and I purchased our house about a year ago. One of the main selling points was the style, mid-century modern. A highlight of the home was a wall of glass which opens to a private backyard and a lovely view of the Verdugo Mountains and the low-lying cities in the distance. The backyard is private enough to not need the use of curtains, and with vaulted ceilings, putting curtains on these windows would not be appropriate to the style of the home. Okay. The lots in our neighborhood are tiered, and the applicant's home is just directly south of ours and on the downslope side. The project would not be compatible or blend well with the houses surrounding it, and most certainly not with the houses adjacent. In fact, the architect's own drawings on sheet A10, which I refer on the board, which show the rear of my home illustrated, just shows how overbearing this second story will be in regards to my house and my neighbor's house. The second floor will greatly obstruct both my view and the view of my neighbors, the Kim family, and they'll be speaking next, I guess. With a proposed height of 25.5 feet, almost double the existing height, this second story will create a wall behind mine and my neighbor's home. I've reviewed the application submitted to the city and the location map that was provided. Okay, based on a 300-foot radius, I've done a little research, and the surrounding homes are on average 1,557 square feet. The proposed addition at 2,714 square feet, not including the garage, is 75% larger than the average home. Also, the FAR, or floor area ratio, on average is 0.22. With a proposed FAR of 0.39, the proposed addition will make the applicant's home 75% larger than the FAR of surrounding homes also. In fact, within 300 feet, I could find only one home larger than 2,000 square feet. I acknowledge that it is a two-story home and almost 2,800 square feet. I would also like to add that it is far too massive for the lot and dwarfs the surrounding homes. It should not be used as a precedent, since it was built in 1962, at a time when there was little, if any, oversight. And my personal feeling is if this home came up before Design Review Board today, it would not be approved. When I called city planning, they informed me that the applicant's lot is zoned for 40% coverage. What this means is the applicant can have approximately a 3,000 square foot footprint, including their garage. This means the applicant could successfully build out a single-story addition that would give him and his family 2,500 square feet of living space plus a 500 square foot garage. I understand the applicant is attempting not to lose valuable backyard space, but in doing so, he's robbing me and my neighbors of ours and dramatically reducing our property value. Based on all the information provided, I ask the Design Review Board to reject this application and to encourage the applicant to pursue a single-story addition. I'd also have a couple photos you can see.
Okay, you can pass them to us. It's nice to see somebody who appreciates their mid-century modern house. Helen Crutchfeld Foster, please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Helen Crutchfield, and my husband Robert and I bought the house last year, and I've lived in Glendale for 8 years. This is the second home we've purchased. The first was a Craftsman that we renovated, and we kept really true to the neighborhood, and the second one is the mid-century modern, and our plans are to do the same with this. And when you drive through our neighborhood, all the southern-facing homes, there's downslope and there's upslope. The house is on the upslope have views from the front of their homes, and the whole neighborhood is like this. And the applicant has a view from their front windows of their house. And the houses on the downslope, they have views from their backyards, like mine. And Robert was speaking about the wall of glass windows. My home, and my concern when we purchased the home, is that we have these 1 foot by 5 feet long windows that sit right at the eaves, going across the whole entire front of my house. So 2 of the bedrooms have very little light because of these tall, skinny windows. On the other side of my house, it's the same thing. They have tall, skinny windows, and it makes the bedrooms very dark. My living area is at the rear of my house, where I have my living room, my dining room, and my kitchen. And this all faces this wall of glass windows. So if this second story goes up, I will not be able to do a dish, eat dinner at my dining room table, cook anything, sit on my couch, watch my daughter dance, or do anything in my living area without seeing the second-story addition. It will dramatically invade my privacy. And I can look out. If they have windows in the rear, they'll be able to look in.
I'm sorry, which one is your house again? This is the area.
Directly behind.
I'll show you. My house is right here.
Okay.
So it's this one? I'm sorry, this one? Okay.
And another very interesting thing about both...
This one.
So, okay, so you're this house, you're not this house.
I'm this house right here.
So your view, you face this direction?
Exactly.
Now, just while you're here,
This is my living room, this is my kitchen and dining area.
And is this their house?
This is the neighbor's
the
house.
neighbor's house,
Okay.
okay, all right, so this is the view out your side,
Okay.
this one, okay.
And
Was she on the clock?
Oh, I'm sorry, she was not.
Okay.
one other thing is that both of our houses, the applicant's and my own, they don't sit straight on the lot. They both sit at a diagonal. And so it makes it very interesting when you look at these two homes in reference to each other. They're not your typical across the middle of the lot home. And I do appreciate my mid-century modern home and my view home in my view neighborhood, and I call upon the Design Review Board to protect the integrity of my mid-century modern, its original wall of glass windows, and those of my neighboring houses, because this will set a precedent in the neighborhood, and I don't think anyone in our neighborhood would like their views obscured by new buildings, and I ask you to reject this application. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, you can just answer it from there because they need to hear it on TV. Okay, so this fence and the hedges,
This is a neighbor's house.
That's my neighbor's.
this is your neighbor's.
Yeah,
So
just to the east of
this
it.
is your house.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your house, where in relation to this window
Right here.
is the particular?
The house will go up.
Speak into the microphone.
You need to.
You can use it. You can use this microphone, sure.
Sure, yes, please, thank you. Sorry.
You should use this one.
The house will go right in this area, like smack in the middle. And the other picture you have is the neighbor right here, and their house faces the other direction. Like I said, my house is on a diagonal, and it's lengthwise on it, and theirs is more...
Where was this picture taken?
This was taken in the winter, and these are not evergreen trees. They lose all their leaves. So the foliage is there now, is not there all year round.
So
Okay.
you're looking out.
Any other questions?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kim?
Okay, we actually have a translator who's a city employee. Her name is Hanel Lee.
Does she need to state her
Yes,
address?
please, in 3 minutes, please.
Should I do that for her? Can you do that? Her name is Ki Boon Kim. Her address is 3746 Parasaway. And she's here to... 먼저 말씀을 해주세요. She's here to oppose the project. She says she lives right next, or on top? 위에 있으세요? 아니면?
우리가 그 집은 아래고 이거 아래고 우리는
She lives on top
그
of
옆에.
the project.
Is this the house?
The second one,
또 뭐야?
Sure, it's
the second from the corner?
어떤 거? 우리 집?
네.
이건 그 집이고 이건 우리 건데, 그지?
Yeah, that's the project.
The second from the
있는
corner.
거지?
And
네.
그래, 맞아.
this is the backyard.
야.
So I can speak Korean.
더 하신 말 있으세요?
What is that?
그래서 반대다 그래. 그래, 저기 붙어서.
She didn't prepare anything, but
Yeah.
she's just opposing the project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Shields.
Thank you all for letting me speak tonight. My name is Sandra Shields, and I'm at 3737 Paraiso Way. I live across the street and about 5 houses down from the proposed project. I would like to frame my comments with my intention, which is highest and best for everyone. No harm for anyone in this neighborhood. And I really respect my neighbor on Santa Carlotta's right to improve their property. On the other hand, I really also really support my neighbors being able to preserve their views and their privacy. I would like to show you 2 houses that are in the neighborhood that represent the best and the worst. This one is on 4428 Boston Avenue. It's a half a mile down from the proposed project. It's on Boston and 2nd. I'd like you to notice the faux Mediterranean details with the Greco-Roman columns, the craftsman-style windows, and the Victorian detailing with the 4 palm trees and a little bit of grass. The tragedy of this house was that it's built on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, near 2nd and 3rd and 4th, which is where the original La Crescenta mountain cabins are, with a lot of craftsman-style houses with detailing, and they really could have honored the neighborhood and chose not to, and I think it's really a glaring error. The next house I'd like to show you is 2 doors down from the proposed project, and it was also built within the last 2 years. It's 3751 Santa Carlotta Avenue. This family went out through the front. They were able to expand through the front and back. This isn't the most creative riff on modernist architecture that one could do, but it blends in well with the neighborhood, and it looks nice, and we're pleased with that project. I want to say that our houses are all mid-century modern. The fronts are very closed, but the backs are very open. I myself have 4 sets of French doors. And so this proposed project and everybody else has the same wall of glass, and this proposed project would take not only the view of my neighbors, but also their privacy too. And so I encourage this house to be redesigned for something that's more reflective of our neighborhood. I'd also like to give you a letter from our other neighbor who's here, but I don't know if she wants to speak or not, that's been signed by 4 neighbors opposing the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sonia Badassarian.
My name is Sonia Bagdasarian, and our house is opposite of my neighbor house, and 5 houses down the proposed house. I just want to add some more detail on these projects. The majority of houses in the neighborhood are 1-story. The new 2nd story will give ugly look to other houses and for neighbors. The upper story does overpower adjacent homes and its impact on streets. The proposed 2-story building will cut nice view and maintain from north and south, even though built in street side setback position in Boston. The new proposed building orientation does not remain as existing one, which I guess the architect has been written.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, which one is your house?
It's further down the street.
The address, if you can.
3734 Paraiso Way.
3734?
3734 Paraiso Way.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time I'll call Mrs. Barbieri back. If you'd like to respond, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
I don't agree at all with the comments. First of all, I don't think the 700 square foot addition that we put in this house, in the center of the house, against the hill, far away from the streets, caused such an enormous impact in any street. Massive wide, the house stayed practically one story with a little corner that come out to be 2-story. This is a very difficult lot. It's a corner, it's on a hillside. There is no way that these clients could develop the extra square footage that they need in the first story. Is impossible. They are going through the expense to move the garage and just breach with a little addition on first floor to be able to have a little bit of backyard because they have kids and they don't have where to be. But that is another story. That is a personal situation. In reference with the house and the style and the mass, I don't really honestly think that we could be so concerned in reference to the neighbors, in reference to the streets, in reference to the privacy. There is no one window in this addition that focuses over any of the neighbors. The only window that we have in the back are bathroom windows. They're going to be obscure glass. Then I don't imagine nobody standing in a bathroom for too long picking over the neighbors, backyard. None of the 2 bedrooms that we have upstairs, that is all that we have, windows are fucking to the streets. Then that in reference to the privacy is having me a little bit alarmed.
Okay.
I don't have no more.
Thank you.
I will have, maybe later if I can have.
Let's see, we'll see where it goes. Okay. At this point, I'll close the public session and move to board comments. Alan?
I'm not going to start.
Anybody?
I happen to have first-hand experience with a similar situation where I used to have a house where when we bought it, we were so excited and we loved everything about the house. The first week after we had bought the house, I sat in the living room and looked out, and there was about maybe 100 square foot addition that at some point someone did to the house across the street, and it was smack at the center of my view. And I can't tell you how much it bothered me, because it was a very small addition, but there was no view left, because I couldn't do anything else except looking at that one addition. For whatever reason, I couldn't. If it's right at the center, there's a problem. And I think a 700-foot addition will definitely take the view away from any of the neighbors above. And it's very clear for me, because I have seen how it can take away the view. Being 700 square feet is not a small addition by any means for that kind of openness that you might have if it's not there. So it's very clear for me that it will terribly destroy the view of the neighboring houses on the upper side of the lot. That for me is a very clear indication that it's not going to help the neighboring houses. And that's all I can see now. I mean, when I look at the project, it just nothing else comes to my mind other than those neighbors up above losing their views. So I leave the other comments to.
I think that you guys are anticipating the question I was just going to ask you.
Okay,
Jump right in.
Yeah, the city council recently completed rather lengthy discussions about the issues of view protection and protection of privacy, which resulted in the adoption of an ordinance which just went into effect a couple weeks ago. And I know at some point we did a presentation before the board on that, but I'd be happy to
Could you please,
do it again. Yeah.
for my sake, to reiterate?
Sure, yes, you weren't here, right. This actually transpired over the course of a whole year. About a year ago, a number of homeowners associations asked the city to look into establishing a view protection ordinance. Now, as it turns out, they really were asking for quite a bit more than just that. I mean, we identified from letters to the editor in the Glendale News Press, we actually identified about 14 different issues that came up, some of which contradicted each other. So we took these to the city council and said, okay, do you want us to work on any of these, all of these? The city council asked us to work on a number of the issues. They specifically did not ask us to write view protection into the ordinance, into the design review ordinance as something staff or the board should consider.
They specifically asked not to write.
Not at this point. That was not one of the issues that they chose to have us go forward on. So as it stands now, the design review standards in the code do not include view protection.
They do include privacy.
They do include privacy, and this ordinance does lay out some pretty specific parameters on how the board should look at that. Generally speaking, protection of privacy is not meant to disallow second stories in a zone where they're otherwise allowed, unless there's some other reasons other than privacy that it would be incompatible with the neighborhood. And I think it also is not meant to, when second stories are permitted, to have them to be constructed without windows. That the ordinance says there should be a reasonable number of windows allowed in the new second floor. Another thing to consider is what is the use of the rooms in the new second story, and the impacts on neighbors to their privacy will come from those rooms where people spend most of their time. Living room, kitchen, a dining room. If the second floor is composed just of bedrooms and bathrooms, those are not rooms in which people spend a lot of time, other than when they're sleeping. So for those reasons, the ordinance is written that the impacts to the neighbor's privacy should be considered by the view from what is called the primary living areas of the development in question. The living rooms, dens, family rooms, kitchens, dining rooms. So if the upper story is only a bedroom and a bathroom, and I don't know in this case, I haven't reviewed the plans that specifically, but you would not, the board, under the parameters laid out in the ordinance council just adopted, should not consider privacy impacts from a bedroom, unless it has a balcony.
Who's that? I mean, the proposed or the...
Proposed.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for staff? Okay. Who would like to continue?
I'll continue. I think it is difficult. I mean, it's hard in a situation where the houses are like that. And I appreciate my board members' comments. I think it is difficult to expect, though, that with such a small change in elevation between the two lots, to assume that somebody's not going to do a second story. I think that's hard. And then we aren't backed up by the council in order to deny it for that reason. So it's difficult to make that justification. But essentially, this finished floor is your finished floor, so it's as if you had someone that's sort of on the same level as you building next door. It was your view, or is your view, until this happens. I have to say, if you were doing a second floor and the house near you had to have a second floor, this is pretty minor in terms of what the view angle is. I know your neighbor it's right in front of them, and yours is also on an angle, and I think some of the things that the architect said or the applicant said, I think, are in your favor. The fact that it is a master bath with obscured glass, and actually like the design of it. I think it is sort of keeping in with the mid-century style. So I don't think there's a lot of reasons other than the fact that we wouldn't like the second floor. I don't know that we have that jurisdiction. So it's hard to base it on the fact that it's that view corridor. So we aren't given that prerogative, I don't think. So from that standpoint, I think it's actually a very attractive addition. So, I mean, as a element in itself, with these unfortunate net results. So.
Tim, you're waving?
Yeah, I would like to add that one prerogative the board does have is to move the location of the second floor around if there's, any obviously advantageous way to do so.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's part of the issue. I mean, if it went more over the garage, it would affect you more. So where are you going to put that piece that doesn't affect something? I mean, you'd almost have to put it out on the front of the house where the addition is, and then it would really look out of place from the streetscape. So it's hard to know where to put that second floor that they are technically allowed to have. I mean, where do you put it? And I think the fact that it's, like I said, obscured glass, it's the bathroom, the windows on that one side facing the street are minimal. I don't know, it's difficult.
Alan, are you ready, or you want me to go first?
No, I think I'm ready.
While Alan gets ready, just to clarify what Tim just said, you do have the option of moving the second story around if that's a recommendation you'd like to make, but not for reasons of view protection. And in this case, there really are not privacy issues we can point to because there are only bedrooms and a bathroom, insofar that there is a small balcony that can be dealt with in regards to privacy, but we're really focused on design in this case.
Mm-hmm. I'll make my comments somewhat brief, but I'm going to concentrate on two parts to this. One, to comment on the design, and the other in regards to the neighbors and how it's going to impact. As far as the design, I think the architect has done a very nice job, and I've kind of studied the plans, and I'm trying to understand, how it's been implemented, and also the heights that the architect has chosen to insert this new addition. And if you look at some of these, the actual plate height, the lowest point is 7'6". I mean, that's the minimum you can have, and I think she was very conscious about the raising this. So I think that I have to commend the architect for and understanding. Also, this latest additional information that the architect provided us, I think it helped me quite a bit on understanding exactly how the adjacent properties are going to get affected. In the past, as I've sat on many alternative assessment panel meetings and other projects that have been somewhat controversial and trying to understand and the project, how it's being proposed, where it's being situated, and then also try to make the most educated study of what it's being, how it's been impacted with its own architecture and its surrounding architecture. Some of the facts, and I don't think the homeowners or have seen this because this was just recently given to us. The certain distances that we're talking about, it's more than the actual length of the entire house. We're talking about 65 feet, 52 feet, 52 feet from this particular, and the building itself, the addition will sit back from there. Right now, as it stands, it's full of trees and foliage, and I actually drove by around that area, and I saw dense trees there. The way I envision this addition. If this property was just simply sitting there and there's absolutely no barrier between the homes and this addition, then I would say it would have a certain level of impact. But because of the current the landscaping that it's between the two properties, I think this addition will have a lot less impact to its view and to its impact to its neighbor. And I try to look certain solutions and understand, if there's any other alternative possibilities of placing this addition on the ground floor, and without tearing portion and pretty much half of this house down, they're not going to be able to put this building anywhere within the backyard because of the building and safety requirements of the distance they will need to maintain from the retaining walls and so forth. So the distance that they have is pretty much where the actual existing building ends, and that's pretty much from, I don't have the calculations or anything, so the proposal, if they were going to put this on the ground, they would have had to do this pretty much flush with the back of the house. Therefore, the backyard, so-called the backyard, unless they would take the retaining wall and push it back to their property line, which I don't even think zoning-wise they can even do that because of the height that they're going to get on the property line. I think this is the best solution for their addition. We're talking about approximately 9 feet or somewhere below 10 feet above the ridge line right now, what the highest point of the ridge line is. The trees that are there, 6 feet of that is getting covered by the fence right now. So from where the ridge line of the existing roof is and where this is being added on based on this section that I'm getting all these numbers, I honestly, I don't think the impact is going to be dramatic enough for me to deny the applicant not to build the second floor. So I think the design itself is done well. I think it is consistent with its architecture. One suggestion I would have is, in the back for the obscure windows, maybe you want to have it clear, but maybe as a clear story, as a higher above, and looking at the plan, the water closet and the shower and all of that is coming almost to the same level as the sill of the windows. So I think it would be more appropriate if we raise the windows up, make it narrower, higher, and clear, so you get light in or not. This way, there won't be any issue of anybody looking over anybody's backyard. But as far as lowering this, or obviously I cannot say they cannot have a second floor because everybody's right and it is allowed within that area. Lowering this, they already have the minimum plate height at the low points, and if I lower the pitch of the roof, then it won't be consistent with the existing pitch of the roof. So that the only thing that they can do is to achieve the look that they're doing. I think they've done a well job.
Thank you. I have a lot of appreciation for mid-century modern architecture. In my spare time, I do a lot of preservation work for the LA Conservancy, just involved with mid-century modern. That's sort of my hobby. So I get excited when I go to a part of Glendale that I don't know that well, being the street, and I drove up the street behind, and was really excited to see this really nice 50s tract of mid-century modern houses. I wondered who built them, and all of that. So I'm very sensitive to compatibility issues in a neighborhood like this, where it is a tract neighborhood. You have a few variations on basically a couple of, models, and they're very consistent. So I think that's very important. So I'm very sensitive to the design of that. And respectfully, the example that one of the neighbors brought of sort of the good remodel, to me, I would never have allowed that. I would never have supported that house being built like that, because to me, doing a faux Mediterranean house with the big foam moldings in this neighborhood is really out of place. So I'm very sensitive coming into this, but when I look at this design, I think that actually the architect's really gone out of her way to do something that really does fit in with what's there. I think it's design-wise a really nicely done design. I mean, this could have been original to this house. When you look at these plans, it really doesn't look like an addition. It looks like the way it would have been built, right down to the way the siding is done and the ridge line, and there's a lot of really interesting details with the roofs that going on that make it a really nicely done and well-considered addition. I mean, much more so than we usually see here. So I have no qualms at all with it in terms of the design or in terms of compatibility. In terms of the view, staff seems pretty clear that we don't really even have the authority to deny it on the basis of view. This is something the City Council has, recently dealt with, so we finally have some direction in this area, and that's what we're told. So we actually, I think, don't have the ability to deny it on those grounds. The one question that I had, the one thought I had, which is really more a question for the rest of the board, architects on the board, and maybe for Vicki, is just why the choice was made to not do a flat roof there, which might have minimized some of this impact. No, I'm being stared at and glared at. Okay. Never mind.
Then it won't be compatible.
I'll let you take that back.
They want me to take that back. Okay, so I guess that would be a no. I hope that it doesn't impact you a lot. I think it's not a huge addition, at least it's not, I mean, they could have done the second floor over the entire house. I mean, they're within their rights to do that, FAR-wise, and they chose not to. But I really can't find any basis to deny this. And I think it'll be a nice addition. I think when it's done, I'm hoping that you're all surprised and that within a year, you'll have forgotten that this was ever an issue.
Doubtful. Is it actually obscure glass? Do we know that is a...
The one that is not see-through. The light gets through.
Well, I think I do want, no, it doesn't say.
Do you want to make it a consideration or a...
I think...
Are you talking about the bathrooms?
The bathroom, yeah.
Yeah, the bathroom.
I have a question. The 7'1", the 7'6", right, top plate, that's the existing house, right?
No, the second floor addition.
Oh, the second floor, you're talking about the second floor.
I mean, that's what I thought it is.
Yeah, and I mean, if you turn the gable the other direction, you'd be staring at all that roof, so it's not helpful even to change the roof location, ridge location.
Yeah, if you look at the actual, it's here too. It's this handout. It's 10'1" minus 17.7, so 7'6". That's your top plate. So the lowest points, what it's allowed by code for usable space, 7'6", and then you've got the same pitch roof. So the only thing that I would probably say she could have done was to lower the pitch of the roof to lower it a little bit, but I think
it can't be that much. Yeah.
The look that everybody wants to, to eliminate to
get it low enough would not be
low enough. It's still gonna
be good.
Be there. So it's really not gonna make any difference as far as if we lower that or not.
In terms of the windows, I would be more supporting a recommendation rather than a
consideration.
To do a consideration rather than a condition, because I'm always very wary of telling people to take out windows. There could be reasons why they want those windows in that place, and
then we'll do that.
Well, I think the one you were talking about in the bathroom was just raising the sill.
Yes, still, I'm assuming they've done some kind of floor plan of where they want their tub and this and that, and I mean, I think we can make it a consideration, but I really don't. I mean, more people usually in their bathrooms are more concerned with people looking in than with them looking out. So
but, what happened with an obscure window is that you see someone, someone's
silhouette.
Profile, many different. And if you're sitting in your,
I think we would that would be a condition to raise.
Yeah, I'm done
the sill.
To do a clear story window, like on top.
It can be clear or obscure, but I think more importantly,
at least 5 or 6 feet. I mean, if you did it to that,
to maybe about at least 12 24 to 36-inch window width.
I think if we respect the sill height, let them, I mean, this file shows a gable window.
It'd just
so-
be more of a clear story rather
Yeah.
than a full-height window, so the height, I shouldn't put a dimension there. I think it'll be more avoided.
So that is not a consideration, that is a condition.
It is a condition.
I would like it to be a condition. Considering it's the one thing that has the most impact.
Anything else?
On the back.
You know, I didn't talk about the design of for me, but because of my experience with the big one, but which apparently we can't do anything. The staircase has a different.
Speak louder.
I will try.
Loud.
Can you speak louder into the mic?
Too far. I think I was thinking, and I would like to see what you guys think about it, but I think it would simplify the volumetric expression of the front elevation if the staircase is not separately expressed as a different volume.
I actually find that interesting. I think it gives a visual interest.
I thought you would say that. But I think it usually you rarely, see this type of houses that will express those kind of pieces separately. It feels kind of alien, although I think I know your good intentions in terms of breaking down the mass of the front of the house, but it seems kind of that all of the houses are made out of very simple volumes, and that seems like an extra piece from my
That
perspective.
open below.
No, this is the
Actually broke the line, broke the side.
the extra eave line on top of the stair.
Oh, I see.
It breaks the line, he pulled that back.
And I'm just opening this question to the rest of the members to see what the...
Well, it certainly pulls your eye upwards, but I felt like it does keep it from being, it does, it's a wood siding, right? And it's darker, and I don't know, I think it keeps it from being flat, and I think it might be more massive if it was, are you suggesting
No,
that?
I'm just saying that it could join the larger volume. The staircase can exist under the larger volume as created by the rest of the second floor addition.
Come on up,
Make it
Vicki.
simpler mass.
I really agree with Chairman Friedman. What we try to do in here is try to make that second story volume as small and less present that we can. This is why the second story top of the plate is only 7'6". The slope is just matching what it is. We didn't know what to do to make this smaller and less significant. And what you refer in the front, in reality, is only to minimize the height of at least this area, not to break volumes and create volumes and all that you are referred to. I think the idea is to minimize that volume as much as we can. This is why the materials are the same, the colors are the same. Make that volume a little bit lower. I wish I could make it lower even, but I couldn't because I had the stairs. Then I really I think you follow very well what was the intention of that design. It's not to create interest or volume, to the contrary, it's to minimize as much as we can the necessary presence of the second story. I wish we wouldn't have it, but I'm not sure.
While you're here, do you have any comment about the window, the suggestion of the windows in the rear?
I think it's a good suggestion. I will say I always try to do something that reach this area because of the women's, and then leave maybe about 5 feet. I think it's a very safe height where privacy for the bathroom area is important. And again, somebody in the bathroom peeking over neighbor's side is something that's hard to control.
Right.
Thank you for letting me.
Sure. Okay, so it seems like we have a motion on the floor, so it would be a condition to raise that window,
Right.
and let's give them the option of making that a clear-story window above where it's wood trellis now, just to give them that flexibility in case they want to, either way.
To Mr. Zarafian's comment, it doesn't bother me. I think the details that, how the railing has come around and in front of the window, and part of the fascia board is kind of thinned down over under the railing, and how all these little intricacies of this detail, I think it's really creating some interest there that I think normally you don't generally see that. But again, it's something that...
No, I was referring to the simplicity of the volumes. I think that if you look at most of the houses, they don't have that kind of sort of an extra piece expression of here's the staircase kind of because that breaks away from the simplicity of the architecture.
Now, would you be okay if we do, then what you're saying is then pretty much eliminate that open below and whatever on the plan?
No, it's just it's a little bit of a detailed kind of a...
It's this, but can I...
It basically, it could be an extension of the roof of the larger volume, that's all I'm saying, rather than, you know how when there's a larger, when there's a smaller piece in front, then part of that roof breaks and becomes, kind of includes that volume underneath. That, I just brought it up for you guys to see if you look at it the same way or not.
It doesn't bother me, but if you guys feel...
It doesn't bother me, but I'll say one thing respectfully, because you guys are architects and I'm not. But one of my concerns with DRB in general has always been that I think we're here to kind of protect neighborhoods and even homeowners from designs that maybe aren't so well considered, but I think that we have to balance that against giving architects the freedom to express what they want to express. And certainly there's lots of ways of doing this addition, and you would probably have a different way of doing it, which isn't to say that your way is not the best way. But I think that given that we have an architect who's really put a lot of thought and work into this and has a vision here, I respect that and would give her the latitude of saying this is her solution, and I wouldn't want us to start to sort of get into these projects when they're so well thought out to the point where we're discouraging creativity. I think that we need to be open to people bringing their own, kind of stamp to it. And I think that this detail is kind of like that. It's something that,
No, I by no means, and I express that I'm not trying to undermine the good intentions. What I was trying to say is that what you just said can be said about any comment that we make here. You could say, but this is what the architect wanted to do, we should respect that because that's their way of doing it. We might have, definitely we would have done it differently.
Right.
But that general statement can be said about anything. So if it doesn't bother the rest of the group, that's fine. That's what I was trying to kind of gauge and see what you felt. Because if our intention is to let there's a language of architecture, and we want to maintain it, then it's our job to bring up the issues and ask questions and see if that's in line in everyone's mind in terms of continuity of language or not.
It doesn't bother me, but if it makes that big of a difference for you, then it's fine. You can make a consideration there.
I think for me still, although we don't have any jurisdiction on it, I think the view will be destroyed, and this is a different type of when you have terrace housing, and there's a reason for terrace housing because everyone looks over the neighbor's roof and beyond, and in no case you'll see terrace housing that will propose a two-story house in front of the terrace above. So I think because of that's part of the vernacular of the hillside housing versus flat sort of site development, which the most view you might get would be to look at the neighbor's yard, which could be terminated by some feet of construction being with some proximity to you. But I think the fact that every neighbor has a view is part of the way this part of the city has been developed. And that's what I think is not, what is the word that we always use? It's not compatible to the architecture of the hillside.
Well, that's an interesting kind of take on it. I mean, can that be dealt with under the compatibility umbrella?
I mean, unless this the site is subject to the hillside design guidelines. I wanted this actually gives me an opportunity to elaborate a little bit on what council was talking about with view protection. It's not that they said they didn't care about view protection, but they asked us to develop guidelines for view protection at a later date as part of updating the single-family design guidelines, and to not attempt to put restrictions into the code now for them. So it's something which is coming, but council's direction, pretty clear direction in the ordinance, especially in the ordinance they adopted, was focus on other things first. So they have not at this point added excuse me, view protection as an item for the board to consider. And we had pretty upfront discussions about it.
Well, because, I mean, talking about the view and view protection, I mean, there are cities, we're just going through a project in Mulholland area that they make you go about a quarter of a mile away and take pictures and see how it impacts the view. And, I mean, we can get to that extent. I think a view can be obstructed simply by planting trees. I mean, and you don't need to go get a permit. You don't need to go get anything. So right now there is the opportunity for people to come and speak, fine. But I think in overall, I think we need to keep in mind that there are other obstructions that can occur, that if somebody is purchasing a property and assuming that this view is going to be maintained forever and ever, with that assumption, they are purchasing a property in a single-family house that you are allowed to have two-story, unless there's a CCNR or any other company that it's amongst the neighbors. But I think everybody needs to be a little bit more open-minded, that people do have the right, and there are other ways that view can be obstructed. Somebody can come and build, a house, 3 stories up, I don't know, 2 stories or whatever, 2 blocks down, that may obstruct a certain view of a certain area of the mountain that everybody, that neighborhood likes to see, or whatever it is. So I just feel that everybody has the right. Unless the code doesn't allow you to do that, then we need to kind of go back and look at some facts of how this is being impacted and where it's being situated and how it's being designed and how it's being built. This thing is about almost, as I said, it's like it's further than this room. I mean, this is probably 60, 50-something feet. I mean, that building is there 10 feet up from the existing ridgeline, and it's not like no trees are there, no fences are there, and they just have a flat view of the entire, clear obstruction.
That point is already made, so there's no. I mean, if we can't, I'm not trying to say that we should base our judgment on that. All I'm saying is that the reason that you think the way you think is because you didn't have a house with a two-story, second story in front of it, so I'll rest my case. I don't want to take your time.
Not to say that we should do this in this case, but I'm just curious. We just got a handout about story poles, and if we're not supposed to be thinking about so much about view protection, what are the story poles for?
That is to give the community a sense of the massing of the home, as opposed to how it might obstruct a view.
Okay. Thank you.
And just as an aside, since this particular application was complete before the passage of the ordinance, that new ordinance that went into effect on April 24th will not apply to this project, just as for your information.
Okay. One thing I would suggest is to make your suggestion about simplifying that detail as a consideration, because then they can think about it, and it gives them the freedom to do it without coming back to us, without pushing them in any direction. And
No,
that way-
I was just trying to raise
No,
it
I
as
know,
a-
I'm just saying, but we
yeah,
should
that's a
use
good
that
suggestion.
consideration,
Yeah, it's good.
part of the motion is always a good thing to use if you want to kind of suggest something without forcing them, because it gives them more freedom, actually, not less freedom.
I'm just hoping that the staff understood what Zarifin was saying.
If I understand correctly, you want to make the second story into one sort of mass instead of having the...
Maybe I should.
Extending the main gable.
I don't want to. No,
It's extending the main gable, right?
it's basically making the that little roof on top of the staircase.
A part of
Yeah,
the
an extension, a lower extension. It could stay at the same height, but it can connect itself to the larger volume. So the staircase is not its own piece, expressed as a separate.
So would you like me to put it that consider making the ridge of the roof over the staircase the same as the second?
Word it like this, though. I think you should begin it by saying, consider simplifying the massing on the second floor addition. That's really right by, and then you can continue like that, because that gives an idea of why the comment is given. But it's only a consideration. Okay. That's not even what I was thinking. You were saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying to bring this roof out.
No. It just connects itself to the. I don't want to. By no means I wanted to turn this into a redesign. I just wanted to bring up the issue of compatibility in terms of simplicity of volumes.
See, I thought you meant to bring this whole section out to connect. That's what I thought you were saying. Okay.
I mean, it could be, as you said, it could be done in many ways, but I was just trying to simplify it rather than...
He was just to say to bring that roof line up and then to connect it to that, right?
Yeah, it basically extends the roof of the larger volume out to include the... I mean, it's a very simple thing. It's not trying to complicate it, but it's a simple change and simplifies the volumetric expression of the building being compatible to the rest of the...
Maybe you can take this and just put it in there as part so that everybody understands. And again, it's a consideration.
It's a consideration. It's not meant to be redesigned.
Okay. And what was it? And then can you read back, Mr. Malekian?
Yes. Locate the windows to the bathroom at the higher level, 24 to 36 inches sill.
No, just raise the sill.
Just that you would, okay.
No dimension.
And the second comment is consider simplifying the massing on the second floor, as shown. I can say as shown.
Yeah. So the first one was a condition, the second one was a consideration.
Right.
Well, the window one was the...
Is the obscure glass part of that, or just... Is it?
That, I thought Ms.
okay.
Friedman said that it can be left to the applicant to decide whether it's clear or obscure, but
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to have to...
I was just saying if it was clear, it'd be nice if it was 5 foot on the sill, that was all.
5 foot seal.
But if the sill was leaked, if it was above 5, it didn't matter if it was clear or not. But if it was lower than that, it would matter if it was clear.
Okay.
I don't know, if you guys feel consistent.
I like to look out my bathroom window, so I personally wouldn't want someone to tell me that I had to have, opaque bathroom window.
Sent to the board.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
That was my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I guess I'm...
second it.
I'll second it. All right, that's good to you, second.
So, I'm sorry, who did the second? Okay, so the motion is to approve with conditions. Motion was done Mr. Malikian and Mr. Zarifian seconded. This is the roll call. Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member Gregos?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Chairperson Friedman?
Yes.
Motion passes by 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Freeman, let me quickly interject something. As part of the changes made to the DRB process, you all may be familiar with appeal time periods changing as well as the whole appeal period process changing. Because this application was submitted prior to and deemed complete prior to the changes, I want to make clear the appeal period. The appeal period is 7 days, and should this be appealed, it would go to the alternative assessment panel, which is different from how it will be.
Oh, because it was before, it still has an assessment option.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Our next matter of business is the approval of the minutes.
Actually, because of the absence of Chairperson Board Member Carter, there aren't enough people.
Okay, so then we'll move on to any staff and board business.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there will be a further discussion of DRB processing to let you know and also inform our applicants and the public as part of the discussion of all of the numerous changes that we've been making at the staff level, including the changes that the ordinance has provided. So because there have been a number of administrative changes and changes at the staff level, we thought this would be a good time to, as an information item, rather than a joint study session, we'll be bringing an information item forward to you in either 2 weeks or 4 weeks' time. This would give an opportunity for the public and our applicants to also gain this knowledge, and for us to get feedback from you all on how things are working, and so that we can continue to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no other business, we are adjourned.
Who did the chair?